When I was coming up in the world of competitive Pokemon, the average age of the player base was lower. I don't know why that is, but nowadays I think this is related in that with the higher average age of the player base, you don't see very many beef battles, as far as I'm aware, anyway. I don't pretend to be the most in touch with the modern goings-on, so as far as I know, the Scarlet and Violet metagame is defined by the innovations made in beef battles, because nothing motivates you to spice up the tier and bring something never before seen, like really having it out for one guy who's you just want to, absolutely pummel. But yeah, when I was coming up, the average age of the player base was lower, and so emotions would run high. Not that they don't now, but the emotions would run high, and people would egg each other on. It's like, oh, you should settle your differences with a Pokemon battle, and then the two parties would go, oh, well, that makes sense. We are here for Pokemon after all, and then they would fight. I think fight is a more appropriate word than battle in this case. But, of course, it doesn't take a genius to see that having a beef battle to decide which of you is the better player in a game as variance-heavy as Pokemon is, maybe not the most indicative of who's really better. You guys will be arguing with each other, and then you have the battle, and then someone gets 6 crits in 6 turns and acts like they just completely outskilled you. And I mean, that happens regardless of beef battles anyway. And it's kind of like arguing with a wall in that case, where someone could get completely destroyed and then act like, all sorts of delusions. I recently went out with a girl who told me she needed her Delulus supported. That was a really interesting experience. Anyway. I promise that was not a ploy to just stretch this video's runtime further than the 10 or 15 seconds or whatever. Yeah, I would never do that. Anyway, time for my bathroom break. So the point being that when I was coming up, there were a lot of beef battles. And this video today is about the greatest beef battle that I know of, in the sense that a lot of people tuned in. Because, most beef battles that I was, back in the IRC days, then there were, for those who don't know what IRC is, which, shudder, it was the chat client that was used before Discord. And I personally loved it, but anyway, it was more small scale, you would have like clan wars and stuff like that. Oh, it's cute. And isn't it adorable how we just, had our own little Pokemon gangs? And yeah, so then you would have like, oh, well, I hate that guy. Oh, well, I hate you too. And then you would fight. And then, not many people besides, the clans involved would know about it. Joey Pokeaim was there too. He saw it happen. He was there. And yeah, so this beef battle is not the one on the screen of CBB and Tesung. This is the context, the stage setter. But the beef, it was between CBB and Tesung, and eventually they kissed and made up, and it was cute. And CBB was... This was just a regular Smogon Tour game. I don't think there was anything more to it than that. And they played this one, and Tesung won. And I don't remember what happened. I have not been paying attention to the replay. All I see is Clefable doing Clefable things. And yeah, and then CBB didn't really think about it very much. But after this Clefable sweep, then Tesung went on to win Smogon Tour. And he did so while beating Blue in the quarterfinals, and then Sweepage in the semifinals. And there was some controversy around that, because Tesung wielded the little shaman that could, which just was defense dropping, special defense dropping absolutely non-stop. So there's the Skarmory getting up rocks, and now Gliscor, and now we're not really interested in this. So yeah, first Seed Flare already forcing out a Clef with a drop, which is... I mean, people think about, oh, is Shaman still viable in DPP? It's like, yeah, if you have a very accurate Seed Flare that also drop... I mean, then it misses the Tyranitar. but which is a desperation move. But what am I saying? Yeah, the problem with Seed Flare is that you only have 8 PP, and it's not 100% accurate, and protect, and it's not really the most reliable thing in the world to go for drops, which you need to get past Clef, because otherwise you're not. And this is pre-Latias anyway. Post-Latias, it's a lot harder, especially when things like Bronzong are backing it up, and bulky Jirachis and things like that. But yeah, that was that's the essence of the whole thing. That this Shaman immediately get the drop, and then T-Tar dodged it. Of course, it would have lived, but still would have been a big hit. And then at the end of the game, then here comes Shaman again on the Roost, Quag Sack, and on the Leech, nicely done by Tesung there. I'm so glad I switched over to this new form of background music. It is from the YouTube channel is called Aim to Head. It's they have great stuff. Anyway, so wow, great move from Sweep there to deny the Shaman. Incredible stuff. Yeah, both players were just ferociously good. And Gliscor doing things. Yeah, so then it comes down to Bold Clefable. Did I build it? I built this team for Sweep, I think. Yeah, December 2014. So yeah, so this CB Flygon is trying to outrage its way through the Bold Clefable, and it does not get anything. And now on the confusion, then Shaman comes in and Clef Calm Minds, and there is the no drop. Oh wait, sorry, I skipped a turn. Calm Mind, Seed Flare, Soft Boiled. There's the drop, and it's -2, so it actually outdoes the Calm Mind. And there's another drop after that on the Soft Boiled, but yeah, ouch! It could have lived another one after that. Oh yeah, that was the big problem. That whoops, sorry, I skipped by accident. Yeah, that it got the last drop on the last turn when it only had one afterwards. No, it had two. Okay, still. Yeah, and it couldn't afford to miss any either. So, yeah, this was, there was some controversy around it. And especially in the CBB Blue Sweepage friend group. Because, they were kind of sore about this whole thing. And then CBB and Tesung played again for some other small tournament, I think. I forget what it was. I couldn't find the replay. But I don't think it was anything big. But then Tesung won that too. And CBB and Blue were not too happy about Tesung's newfound superstar status. Sweep too, but he wasn't as... Well, not that Blue was vocal about it, because Blue had that whole thing about, not publicly making any enemies. But yeah, CBB was very, very open about, not considering Tesung good and things like that. Then people would rib him for it. It's like, hey, CBB, aren't you 0-2 against Tesung? And CBB would come out with the, tirades about how it was essentially 0-0. Because of matchup, and he tried to throw and did all this horrible stuff. And playing-wise, not, as a person. And I'm ribbing CBB here, but I promise I mean it good-naturedly. And that is what happened. That was a real quote from 0-0. CBB and I used to argue about this a lot. We used to really get into it. Yeah, I miss like the passion and energy and footwork of those arguments, but I don't miss those like long debates over this kind of stuff. Anyway, so it went on so much that we now come to Tesung's profile. Also, Tesung's not actually 34 years old. He's like 10 years younger or something. Yeah, so they agreed to a beef battle because I think what happened was basically Tesung got sick of CBB constantly calling him terrible. I mean, someone who was around, feel free to correct me on the specifics, because all I could find was this this public post on his wall. And also, look, it's me. I'm hilarious. Over a year and a half later. Anyway, So yeah, they agreed to a beef battle, and the beef was not only so publicly widespread, because this wasn't just like a small little clan war or a friend group against a friend group. No, this was like a Smogon-wide, and I mean CBB was also known throughout YouTube because of his association with Joey. So I mean, a lot of people tuned in. I forget how many were in the replay, but like in the chat log of the replays we're about to watch, I mean, at the beginning before it gets muted, and there's so many people talking. Those are just the people talking too. Yeah, people were very excited for this. They agreed to a beef battle, and CBB even demands stakes where if he wins, Tesung says CBB are the best forever, and if Tesung wins, then CBB would quit forever. So, high stakes. Alright, so that's basically it. And they were doing Smogon Tour tiers, which at the time was Oris, Black and White, and DPP. And now none of those tiers are in Smogon Tour. Good lord. For those who don't know, the Smogon Tour tiers are the 3 most recent generations of OU. Brutal. Although I do respect your intelligence, kind viewer, so I trust that you could have figured that out from context. Anyway, so yeah, they started out with Oris, which was both players' signature generation, and yeah, the hatred. Just sometimes there's this intangible je ne sais quoi, and God, I went out with this French girl. She was making fun of my French pronunciation, which motivated me to learn French better. But it didn't motivate me that much because I haven't really tried. Anyway, so this fucking battle. Sometimes you get this sense of tangible hatred coming through the battle, even when the players aren't saying anything. I mean, yeah, sometimes the players not saying anything speaks volumes, but plenty of battles go by where the players aren't saying anything, and you don't think, oh, these two really fucking hate each other. No, it's, I guess you have to kind of be aware of what's going on. But here, there's just this palpable, visceral... I'm so lost for words right now because I can't figure out what language I'm speaking. But yeah, you could tell that these two really... Because Tesung was a pretty easygoing guy, and CBB was a known fireball. He's calmed down a lot in recent years. He kind of mellow out with age. Sometimes you still have an outburst. I would know about that, right? But, more or less, you just kind of take it easy. Anyway, Tesung was a pretty easygoing dude, but even he, was getting pretty annoyed by CBB constantly calling him bad. And, I mean, which I get, because, like, another example I remember is that McMegan is also a very notably, easygoing and relaxed. But there was this one period in time where every single one of his games, it seemed like he was getting lucky. And, I mean, he was to some extent, but he was also playing amazingly and using great teams. So it's like, well, yeah, it was bullshit that he was getting as much luck as he was. He was also, not robbing wins. He was earning them. And anyway, there was this point where, like, Dice would follow him around in, like, all his battles and just constantly comment about how lucky he was getting. And, like, yeah, but even McMegan, after, like, months of this, was getting annoyed that Dice just would never shut the fuck up about how lucky he was. On one hand, I sympathize with him. It's like, dude, okay, I get it. On the other, it's like, hey, you're getting all the luck. Anyway, so you see the inner drama of this, of the competitive Pokemon world. It is serious shit. And, yeah, so we've got this Oris game. And, God, Sung's got some spike stacking Mega Zam stuff, and CBB is running some old Hugo, a.k.a. Great Astrid balance. So, yeah. Good lord. Okay, there is... Yeah, I remember I tried to record this live, but they were playing so fast. Like, it was just clicking. And they were making great moves. It wasn't like they were making stupid moves that I couldn't keep up, so I was like, yeah, never mind. So, yeah. I'm sure there is a live recording of this. Lazar Angelov. Oh, yeah, that was CTC's persona of the month. I forget what that was all about. But, yeah, so the chat was just going absolutely berserk here. And you know what? I apologize if there's any uncouth language in this. Actually, the dimensions don't even work that well for it. Okay, you know what? I will leave the I will hover over to the chat if anything interesting gets said. I think it gets muted in a couple turns anyway because the fans were being so obnoxious. So if there's anything noteworthy, I will hover over to it. But otherwise, I'll just leave the replay in the pinned comment. So this was when Landorus Incarnate was still legal, or just Landorus was still legal in OU. Good lord. April 3rd, 2015. That was 3 days before my 19th birthday. So, yes, this Landorus threatens Slowking with a knockoff. Because Slowking with an Assault Vest takes Earth Power and all that very well. Or decently, anyway. But even without worrying about the pursuit of it all, then you gotta fear Lando itself just knocking off and down you go. So CBB makes a great move, not risking Slowking living knockoff and scalding it back, and goes to Suicune. And in the event that Tesung pivots into something like Lando to try to absorb the knockoff, then he has a good matchup against that as well. So just masterful right off the bat. Whereas Tesung recognizes this is a Pokemon that is extremely dangerous, of course, and he doesn't really need Slowking for much else. Like, it's not like there's a Keldeo or something on CBB's team that he's going to need it for. And it has Regenerator. Plus, it's going to have to risk Pursuit at some point anyway. So you may as well go for the Scald rather than, oh, I need to keep my Slowking safe for Lando. Oh, and I got Pursuit and didn't do anything anyway. You know, if CBB is going to leave that Lando in and maybe give him the Scald on it, then hey. So he probably has enough defense to live that knockoff from full. Because, you know, Special Lando is not attack invested. And, yeah, okay, so Tesung also had a reputation for being lucky. It wasn't just that series against Sweepage that cemented that reputation for him. It was also the fact that he was constantly getting full parried. Getting full parried was literally called getting Tesunged because of how often he was getting this luck. It was just ridiculous. It wasn't even like, I mean, yeah, he spammed a lot of T-Wave. But he would also just like T-Bolt, first T-Bolt already paralyzing, and then you're full paralyzing, and then the game is over in a couple turns because of that little bit of luck. You know, it wasn't like, oh, after 20 turns a T-Bolt parried, and, you know, oh, well, I was going for it. No, just, oh, let me throw out a T-Bolt. Oh, whoops, I got a full full para. Yeah, so the fact that he gets a first turn Scald burn, he even jokes about it here, maybe to try and goad CBB into some sort of tilting misplay by saying standard Tesung. And he spells it wrong because I remember Tesung was completely incapable of spelling words correctly. Or maybe not spelling, but, you know, he typoed constantly. It was kind of funny. Anyway, so standard Tesung because he immediately gets the burn on Suicune. I mean, it's a rest Suicune, but because this was before Sub Protect was invented. That was still a year off. But even then, you wouldn't switch that into Scald, so... So Suicune forces the Slowking out, knowing that it is just going to Calm Mind in its face, and CBB goes to Lando and catches the Pharaoh. And this is threatened out by Focus Blast. In comes Slowking, and CBB goes for Earth Power, trying to... Well, it hits Slowking a lot harder, for sure, and it also would have hit Clef trying to pivot in. So that was a better move than Knockoff, especially because Knockoff is not boosted by Sheer Force, therefore gets Life Orb Recoil. So now Slowking is in range of Knockoff. I mean, absolutely. So Tesung tries to pull that switch to Lando T to Intimidate, and I mean, it loses its helmet, but Lando gets chipped hard because it takes Life Orb and it takes helmet damage. And now its subsequent Knockoff is going to hit the Slowking a lot less hard. So, but Tesung doesn't know that this Lando has HP Ice or not. Whether this Lando has HP Ice or not. So, he's not going to stay in and, you know, not scout for it, of course. So CB goes to Scizor on the Slowking. I mean, beautiful Slowking switch there. But because, you know, it takes HP Ice and it regenerates back. And if there's another knockoff, then hey, Slowking will have lost the Assault Vest. So subsequent knockoffs will have done much less, will do much less damage. So we can just regenerate it off. I mean, it also comes with the downside of losing the Assault Vest, so you can't switch into Earth Power. But in a one-on-one, Slowking will be less threatened by the Lando. I mean, I actually don't know the calc on EP versus EP without Assault Vest versus, you know, knockoff with, so I shouldn't say that too confidently, but my head calc is saying that knockoff is, with an Assault Vest on, is the scarier of the two moves. So, plus it's, you know, not likely that he goes for. I mean, if he goes for that, there's other knockoff props, but if he doesn't, then he doesn't. So here we see blunder in the recording saying Tesung is not human. Is there? Oh yeah. Oh, see here he gets a scald burn. Oh, they disabled the mod chat. He gets a scald burn, and no one can react to it in the chat. I saw the word shot or shots, and I tried to say a different word. They can't react to it in the chat until the next turn because they're playing so fast. But yeah, already the luck and commenting on how fast they're playing. Yeah, so there's CBB even taunts him a little, you god, by absorbing the Lando knockoff so beautifully. So yeah, he switches in fear of HPS, but that's exactly why CBB's Scizor switch is such a great move, because he recognizes how good that Slowking double switch is, and how insanely risky just leaving Lando in to get HP Ice for free is. So he goes to Scizor. You know, rather than bother with EP or knockoff, because EP at least doesn't take Life Orb recoil, but HP Ice would if he pivots into Slowking again, and then he's already lost over a third of his health. So he goes to Scizor instead, which allows him to get his Mega off safely, which lets him switch into moves more easily, and that's important because Mega Alakazam is a threat. And he's got Assault Vest Torn and Mega Scizor. And Assault Vest Torn, once rocks go up, isn't as safe. So you want to get that Mega off as soon as possible so you can withstand its hits. Great move. And, oh, he doesn't get the Mega off. So there was a kind of cool idea. But he, I'm sure it still applies, of course. But he really just doubles back to Lando on the, oh, I think he was looking for the Heatran. So Heatran or Lando, both are fine. But Lando is probably the rocker here, because Heatran has other moves you would want to use and not have rocks on it. And if you've got Helmet Lando, then you should probably have rocks on it. So another, oh, beautiful, beautiful. He knows he's gonna scare out the Lando again, so he goes to Scizor again. So he basically makes the same move, and just seeing. Yeah, I wonder if he's kind of like toying with him, like he's getting a sense for, all right, what's this guy's pattern? What's going on? So he actually, ooh, that's spicy. He doesn't make the same move this time. Beautiful. I mean, this is what makes a great player, that it's not just about, making the right moves, quote unquote, and bringing the good teams and everything. It's about mixing up your play, because when you get to this level where the other player knows what the right move is too, or the good moves, then you have to start mixing it up. You have to start looking for those moves that aren't, the quote-unquote perfect play, but things that you can mix up and throw in there, and you really have to get creative. Like that Torn switch, for example, that can still do something to a Lando switch. It can knock off a Heatran switch. Knocked off Heatran, that's not withstanding Scizor over the course of a longer game. Lando gets Hurricane, and I mean, hey, that's great news too. So Torn covers both those switches, and in the event that Slowking decides to get cute and stay in, I mean, I don't know if he was expecting Fire Blast, although, with an Assault Vest set, it makes a lot of sense because there's no slack off in your moveset. So you're going to be running Scald, Psyshock, Fire Blast, Ice Beam, Future Sight, Dragon Tail, things like that. So you also have to account for the possibility of staying in. Now, I assume if it was U-turn Mega Scizor, it would have U-turned because there's no reason not to. The Lando T doesn't even have Rocky Helmet anymore, so that tells us it's Bug Bite. And if it's a bulky Mega Scizor, its Bug Bite, as strong as it is, might not KO a bulky Slowking from full health, just like Lando's Life Orb knockoff might not. So he decides to play it safe and go to Torn T, mixing up, when you can throw in a move that isn't of the standard decision tree. Like, oh, well, if I think he's going to stay in, then I Bug Bite. And if I think he's going to switch, then I go to Lando. No, you start mixing it in and covering for different options. And yeah, I'll stop repeating myself now. So now he's got Torn threatening the Slowking with a knockoff. And he doesn't even go for the knockoff. I mean, knocking off Clef would have been nice, but it's not really the goal. And now Heatran comes in on the Clef to get those rocks up. So in comes Lando T on the rocks. Oh, wow. There's, yeah, I was going to switch over to the chat, but now there is some real language that I would prefer not to show on the screen. So if you click on the replay in the pinned comment, then discretion advised. Rocks go up, Lando T comes in comes Torn again, so really showing his willingness to have Torn T tangle with Lando T. And Lando T is not going to stay in, and he just U-turns again. And now in comes Heatran again. Rocks up both sides. In comes Tesung's own Heatran, because he's assuming the standard utility Tran of the time, which is Rocks, Taunt, Toxic, Lava Plume. So he's like, oh, my Heatran doesn't have Rocks, so it's probably going to have something like Earth Power or Roar or something that can blank. It can not only blank the opposing Heatran, but, if you have the same Heatran, the Rocks, Taunt, Toxic, Lava Plume one, then you're just, in a stalemate. So it's safer to assume, or, likelier at least, that Tesung's own Heatran will be able to actually do something to CBB's Heatran, in addition to blanking it. So there's the Plume, and there's Kratos Mana in the chat going, holy shit, clicking too fast. And then there's a genius in the chat named Wonderbread saying, you do realize this doubling is near pointless without Rocks. And to that I say, I disagree strongly. Yeah, because of what we have just established, which is, feeling each other out, seeing what position you can get yourself in. Yeah, it was really nicely done by both players, of course. Yeah, and in the chat, Ruer saying, Ray, it's a band battle. They're fighting for pride. It's not exactly how it was phrased, but yeah. So, there's a Magma Storm from Tesung showing that, okay, it might not be a bulky Heatran. It could still be, but it could also be a more offensive Heatran, running, Magma, EP, Taunt, Filler, like HP. I don't think HPX Heatran is really a thing at this point. Whatever it might be, Taunt Toxic maybe. Then, because he doesn't have a Pursuiter, so he might want to mess with the Megaladios. Although that wasn't also really a thing at this time. Either way, it messes with, like, Slowking and, Waters. So, yeah, but a CBB stays in, thinking, all right, there's no way he's just going to EP. I mean, he could, but he doesn't want, Torn or Lando or, even Suicune, whatever. But he might not even have it. So, that's a bold move from CBB, risking the possible Earth Power. But he wants to, I guess he also doesn't feel super comfortable switching into it. He thought, well, Suicune's burned, but it's still healthy. I don't know. Either way, he made a bold move going for Roar, which is very unexpected. I think the fact that CBB knows Tesung is expecting Rocks, Taunt, Toxic, Plume, aka not really threatening, means why am I ever going to stay in, meaning he's going to be more likely to make that prediction. So Roar was very reasonable there. In comes Clef again. Clef is going to be completely blanked by this Heatran, probably Calm Mind Flamethrower if it's not going for a T-Wave here. And there's another Roar. Heatran, Rocks damage. Excuse me. And Lando T is in now. And now in comes Suicune. Is it going to get U-turned, knocked? It gets knocked, but it's going to get rested too. Which, yeah, was not a great answer, but it's, better than, you don't mind Torn T squaring off against Lando T one-on-one, but you don't want to switch Torn T into Lando T, because then the momentum, the advantage is Tesung's. So rather go with Suicune. It is fairly, I don't want to say expendable, but you can kind of play dirty with it. And what I mean by that is, when you see someone use Rotom Wash, they will throw it into Will-O-Wisps and Toxics and all sorts of stuff because they know it's not supposed to stay perfectly healthy the whole time, or in most games anyway, and it's going to paint split and work that way. And with Suicune here, your job is not to, perpetually wall something on the opposing side with it. It's more soak status and, see what you can make happen with it. So the rest here is going to bring in Ferrothorn for some free spikes, and this brings to mind another point of CBB's that he used to get very mad at people for bringing balanced spikes teams to this stage of Oris because Lando was so broken and offense was so good that he thought that it was stupid to bring these balanced teams, and he thought that even the players who succeeded with them, well, they weren't beating anyone good, stuff like that. I remember that semi-fondly. But yeah, so Tesung, it's so much more than just, for pride. These players are both, using their... CBB's team is slower than, his trademark Bisharp stuff. But he also is, wielding the Lando that he believed so much in. And Tesung is bringing, a balanced Spikes team. So, both players... not just reputations and all that on the line, but even their ideologies for how to play the game itself. So, purest essence of a beef battle. They're not just, it's not like they decided to bring some strange counter teams. No, they're saying, no, this is my style and I'm bringing it. So, in comes Torn T on the spikes, not wanting Heatran to get knocked or leeched, maybe. Or maybe he wanted, actually, I guess Torn T makes more happen than Heatran. Because Heatran roars, and nothing really switches into Torn T comfortably, because Clef gets knocked still. So some progress of some sort is insinuated here. He threatens the Pharaoh with a Heat Wave, and he goes for the knockoff, finally gets that on Clef. So now Clef will have to manually heal with Soft Boiled. That can be big. So now in comes Heatran. Wow, that's really nice. Rather than, oh god, that's really good. Rather than get Heatran in on the Pharaoh and start roaring, what if you could force the Clef in, knock it off, and then you turn on it and then get Heatran in and start roaring? So you've made more progress than just Heatran roar, but you also have Clef knocked and damaged a little. I mean, that's just really, really beautiful. So you see what I mean? He gets the same Heatran in to do roar stuff, but he also gets the Clef knocked out of it, which he wouldn't have if he just went to Heatran on the Pharaoh. Really, really beautifully done. So now in comes a Soft Boiled on the roar just to minimize damage. And in comes Zam. And Mega Alakazam now is going to trace Flash Fire, so you can't Lava Plume it. And its Focus Blast is going to hit really hard. And there's a pretty nice bit of luck for CBB, as that Focus Blast wouldn't have killed, but it would have knocked Heatran down to really, really low range. And it gets Toxic for its troubles. So now it has to Toxic again, and now he can switch out. And now Tesung is like, alright, well, I'm not going to risk this Focus Blast. I don't know why he didn't, honestly. Nothing is switching into Focus Blast comfortably. Scizor is unmega'd, and there's Rocks and Spikes down. Suicune, no. Lando, I mean, you kind of welcome that. Torn T, it's going to be taking Rocks, and I don't know. Yeah, I get it. But the thing is, with CBB unable to switch into Focus Blast, he's just going to do exactly what he does, which is roar. So you would have just gotten that Focus Blast for free. So, I don't know. I think that next turn should have been a Focus Blast for sure. But now Slowking gets dragged out, and Tesung does not want it to be Toxic, so he goes back to his own Heatran, and Heatran does not roar on the Slowking. Because he doesn't want to take a Scald. Toxic for Scald is good. Toxic for Scald for Roar, not so much. So now Tesung finally has Heatran in on Heatran and is going to scare it out. And is he going to go for the Earth Power? And he finally reveals that he has Earth Power, and CBB gets torn in on it. Beautiful. And Heatran has been chipped so nicely by Rocks at this point, and now the knockoff is going to be even more devastating. Because once that knockoff lands, then that's it. So he decides, look, I don't care if Clef comes in and on the knockoff. I want to guarantee, no matter what, that on this turn, Heatran will not stay in and hit me without losing its leftovers. It's not a prediction so much as a guarantee of a condition, and that's a really, really important difference. Distinction to make, I should say. So if Clef comes in, okay, fine, I can handle that. But I'm guaranteeing the Heatran will not hit me and keep its leftovers. So, whereas if I, U-turn on the Heatran, then, I mean, because the gain for U-turning out on Clef is not even that big either. Because, okay, you get Heatran and you're doing some more roars. Okay, did that you really need to predict that? No, you can just U-turn after. Whereas if you U-turn on the Heatran and you switch Suicune into it with no lefties into a Magma Storm and Rocks and Spikes up, then you're toast. So, no, you guarantee that. I mean, even if T-Tar can switch into it, then it's still not something you want to be doing. So beautifully, beautifully done. There's a lot to be learned from this. Heatran comes in again, and it's going to start Lava Pluming because the Clef doesn't have a Calm Mind. So it's actually going to hit it quite nicely, and now that it doesn't have lefties, it has to manually soft-boiled. So when there's another plume, when you force the soft-boiled, then you are forcing, CBB's really does not want to repeat that earlier Calm Mind Clef sweep. So yeah, it's now going to have less soft-boiled. You can roar it out whenever you want, so these lava plumes are very free. There's a meaningless burn, and the Focus Blast miss is really, really stinging here. But he should have gone for it again after. So, yeah, Calm Mind's here, not really making a difference. I guess if you -1 the Lava Plume, that might open something up for, I don't know. But, yeah, he drags in Ferrothorn, so this Roar Heatran with just Rocks is just causing terror. He roars again on the Heatran. In comes Mega Zam, taking rocks and poison because it no longer has Magic Guard on account of receiving Trace upon Mega Evolving. And now in comes Torrentee. He's going to protect it from that Focus Blast. And it misses again, so it's not even going to be... I mean, it wouldn't have died to Psychic afterwards anyway, but now it's even better off. And another U-turn, and in comes Lando. So threatening Sludge Wave, which was a common move at the time, because, yeah, you can hit Clef hard with Earth Power, or you can OHKO it, or come close with Sludge Wave. It's just so ridiculously powerful. And there is the Sludge Wave, which he does reveal. And now we've got, okay, so does this have... We know it has Knockoff. Does it have HP Ice? We don't even know. Does it have Rock Slide for Torrentee? Does it have Focus Blast? Does it have Rock Polish? You know, is it going for an endgame sweep? And so now we've got the Slowking versus Lando situation again, because before, you know, the focus shifted to passive damage, and now it has, now it's more in CBB's wheelhouse, which is aggressive offensive threats. And now, so Tesung goes to Lando T, trying to pivot on the knockoff like he did before, just for the recoil of Life Orb, just for the -1 attack. And CBB HP ices the Slowking and drops the Lando. Beautiful move, because he knows he can't risk the Slowking. I mean, so yeah, he knows he can't risk the Slowking, because then he just, you know, is losing. But I mean, it's well, I won't get into it too much, but yeah, it was, the Slowking was just such a free KO for the Lando there that it makes more sense to try and pivot around it in some way. I wonder, actually, if Clef was the better move there, because you still get the knockoff. I guess it's not like the... I get that you're trying to HP, or intimidate it so that Slowking's follow-up... so the Slowking's follow-up thing, switch, is... It's less threatened by the knockoff. But again, that whole knockoff Assault Vest thing, especially now that rocks are up and Slowking's taking damage, is not a perfect health. So I wonder if Clef might have been better to try and absorb that knockoff. I mean, not that you can account for a move like that, but at this level, you kind of do have to account for moves like that. But yeah, the move was, you know, knockoff or double switch, or well, probably not double switch, because with Rocks and Spikes, the switches are limited. So it's knockoff or HP Ice, really. EP doesn't really enter into that equation. I wonder if you could even... actually, I guess you kind of want to preserve Ferrothorn, because Ferrothorn is kind of good here. Well, it's decent. But, you know, if you knock off Ferro, yeah, you lose lefties, but, I mean, you'll get it back in some way against Suicune or the Scarf T-Tar, which was the go-to T-Tar at this time. And you'll have Leech Seed, and, more importantly, you'll have extra recoil on the Lando, and you are fighting for every bit of recoil you can get. And, you know, hell, I think you could even leverage Ferrothorn's... bulk to withstand an E-Power, to if it means getting rid of the Lando, then I mean absolutely. So yeah, but that's obviously hindsight, and that was an insane move. So yeah, HP iced, and now T-Char comes in right on the Scald. That's gonna be no burn, and he's just gonna go right for the crunch, as Tesung does not switch out, and down goes Slowking, and now in comes Pharaoh, in comes Scizor. Yeah, that was a tough move, but I think Crunch was the safer move, because whatever you hit coming in is fine. I mean, T-Tar is dead to hazards, which, you know... Also, that was a very hard-hitting Scald. I think it was a special attack invested in Slowking, which was not uncommon on Assault Vest, as I remember. But yeah, Crunch, you know, if it stays in, great, and if it switches out, okay, whatever, because it's still in Lando range, and the win condition at this point seems to be Scizor anyway, because all those roars on the Heatran have really brought it into range. So, Scizor comes in on Spikes, and he's going to Leech Seed it. And Scizor, yes, that was not an unintentional non-mega, as CBB goes, hey, I mega'd, fuck off. But, fortunately, it did not really change anything. So, who is that in the text? Sorry to bring you out of it for a second, but this might be important. Okay, it actually is. Not so important that I have to respond immediately, but important enough that I know that... You know, sometimes you don't respond to a text, and you hear your phone buzz, oh, I'll check it later, and then you forget, and then later, a couple hours later, you're like, oh, man, I should have responded that way earlier. So now I know after this I have to do that. Anyway, so another No, he roosts to stay in good health, and, I mean, this is just complete fodder with Leech Seed. The whole thing is switching into... He's afraid of switching into... I don't know why he wasn't switching to Heatran there, honestly. I mean, I guess he's afraid of not... Yeah, okay, he's afraid of knockoff. He doesn't know that it's not Bug Bite. Oh, I actually forgot to consider that earlier. When he has the Scizor on what's it called? On Slowking, it might not even be Bug Bite, it might be Knockoff. That was very popular. So, here comes Zam on the Roost. Yeah, I guess he was willing to sack the Zam, but now he's like, hey, can I go to Heatran on BP? He doesn't, even though CBB goes, you're going Tran, bro. Yeah, we both know it, but he just plays it safe. I find that exchange kind of funny because it is kind of emblematic of, if you take it at face value anyway, of, this is very common in general, not just like beef battle stuff, but people will like talk a big game and then play safe. I'm not saying that's what CBB was doing here, but it is, you'll see it all the time. Like, some people will rip on others for bringing, but this is actually that's going on right now in SPL in many cases. People will go, oh, they're bringing such boring teams. Oh my god, the teams are so boring. And then, when they play themselves, then they bring the most boring stuff imaginable. I have no problem with boring, by the way, but if you're going to bring it, don't rip on others for bringing it. And even if you aren't going to bring boring, I wouldn't rip on others for bringing boring. But anyway, so he just plays it safe with BP because at +6, it is still going to sting Tran quite decently with rocks. And yeah, Leech Seed, whatever, but no need to get fancy because, look, you're going to get that setup opportunity again. Not on Clef because it probably has Flamethrower, but on Pharaoh, and, rather that than... I guess he could have knocked off because he didn't want to... he could have taken the hit from Zam, but I guess he also didn't want to risk, Hidden Power. Oh, it's +4, it's not +6, sorry. So yeah, even more tempting to switch Heatran in there. But yeah, it's also going to sting it fairly decent. Well, okay-ish, not with Leech Seed. But yeah, plays it safe because, hey, worst case, I just switch out and do this again later. So, but he gets Zam down, which is big. So, yeah, no denying luck played a part in that. But, hey, again, beef battles, yeah, luck is going to happen. So, but again, this is another lesson for Pokemon. Don't always look at the end result, look at how it was done. So, Lando comes in, and now it's just Earth Power City. It is absolutely... yeah, so now you don't even have to think about anything else. You just EP, there's a crit, not really doing anything. And CBB, oh wow, CBB was, oh no, so lucky. You feel that, hatred for like everyone watching, just like, oh no, they're going to think that I lucked him. And so he uses Sludge Wave just to, make sure that it, it's not, they can't say, oh, the crit, whatever, And honestly, I respect hatred for the audience. I think there are, to some degrees, I think it has to be warranted in some cases. But, like, there are several films I like which have some built-in hatred for the audience. And it makes you think. I really appreciate it. So, I don't know if it was warranted here, though, because... if anything, I think the Focus Blast miss was obviously a million times more important. But, yeah, so he's just going to Sludge Wave. But, what he really wants is just to guarantee the condition of Scizor uses SD and the game is over. So, don't let Clef in and start, Calm Minding and Flamethrowing and doing stupid stuff. So, yeah, now he goes to Clef because he has to get that Flamethrower in as quickly as possible, but it's not going to survive the +2 BP. And ball game. And that's just game 1. Yeah! Alright, so DPP. As I recall, CBB used a team of mine for this. A very offensive team. And it had some really cool sets. I think it had like Agility Dragonite. Not Tesung's Dragonite, which I think is just a standard mix set, which was still very popular at the time. You don't see Mixed Knight lead very much anymore. Only like one guy uses it. And or CB even. But instead it's more like about DD lead stuff. The Stone Cold Legendary Dave special. So, this Jirachi is like a 4-attack variant with Akka, I think? I think it was Akka, I'm not sure. There's a lot of berries or expert belts or whatever you can throw on. I experimented with a lot. But yeah, it's got Akka was a standard on a Stealth Rock special attacking lead Jirachi, which was very popular at this time, actually. So, Rocks, Psychic, T-Ball, HP Ground, like Super Rachi, but with Rocks instead, and the Akka Bear in the lead slot, the Panamaxis special. That was very popular on many offensive teams for a while. Before the physical Jirachi complete takeover. There's Fireball. Okay, well, I guess it was Shuka then. As Jirachi drops, and but it gets a big Icy Wind on the D-Knight, and now Heatran's going to come in and finish it off. But not, because it's going to Fire Blast, and Tesung... Okay, well, that E-Power clicked too quickly. But yeah, he's going to switch to his own Heatran, And Scarf Heatran was extremely popular at this time, so I guess if he might have thought, oh, it's a Scarf Heatran because it's so popular. I don't know if that was super solid, though, because Tesung stays in, and he is not Shuka, and he's just going to get Earth-powered. And, I mean, that was a bold move from CBB, too, because this Heatran, as I remember, was not Shuka itself. It was Choppleberry. So, yeah, it wasn't about D-Knight being outsped by Heatrans. Oh, so it has to be Scarf. Number one, because Icy Wind dropped its speed. But number two, even standard lead Dragonite tends to get... It doesn't... Or even standard mixed Dragonite gets outrun by Rock's Heatran. It runs speed in the mid-240s, so it gets outrun even by max speed modest Rock's Heatran. And most of them were plus speed. And you know CBB loves plus speed nature so much that he would... Even if... I think the version I gave him probably had... I don't know, I'm not 100% sure. But it whatever it had, when I gave it to him, whether it was both, because I probably experimented with both, then by the time he loaded it in the battle, it almost definitely had plus speed. So he just went for it because he's also thinking, hey, this thing... also, this generation was neither of their specialty. They were more Gen 6 guys. So any like strange plays can be more attributed to that probably. But he just aggressively goes for E-Power, probably thinking, hey, he might think I'm locked into this, and just aggressively going for it. And again, it's also an interesting move because Shuka Heatran was so rare at this point, you know, that if you stay in an E-Power, you're probably going to KO the opposing Heatran. But it's the staying in the first place that that's the tough part. But yeah, so now Heatran drops with the useless crit, and in comes Infernape, so he's got a cool double fire thing going on. And there's the Chopple, and there's another KO. So, yeah, there's this team is very berry heavy. In comes Rotom Wash, and he doesn't even go for Hydro Pump. He just goes for a T-Bolt. So I'm like, is that Life Orb or Specs or something? And because that wouldn't have KO'd without some sort of boost, even against an offensive Heatran. But yeah, now he safely goes to T-Tar, and he just goes for a Crunch, and I believe he defense drops. And it doesn't have lefties, so it's 100% in range after that drop. And it's, as I remember, the thing is, it's an HP Grass T-Tar. Believe it or not, because this team is somewhat annoyed by Swampert. So, and other things like Quagsire and Gastrodon too. But, so we didn't even need that drop. But, no need to reveal that. And if he's going to pivot out of the defense drop, then you don't want to be HP Grassing something on the switch. You want to be hitting with a stab. So, in comes Empoleon, so another piece of luck. And he even asked, Whiskers? What is that? And Whiskers was a name the player Floppy, a.k.a. Georgie, a.k.a. the funniest guy to play Pokemon. He would use Endeavor Salic Swampert and a lot in Gen 3, not DPP, and he would name it Whiskers. So he was asking if it was Whiskers because it took so much from Crunch and didn't have lefties, so no bulk. So he just goes for another Crunch, and in comes Empoleon, and it's probably going to get outsped and superpowered, yeah, but I forget if this T-Tar's Pasho or not. But yeah, I don't think there's two of the same berry on this team, so I don't think it's Chopple. But yeah, or Shuka. Mixed sets don't really use Shuka very much. So in comes Dragonite, and he's just going to pivot to Starmie on the superpower. And at this point, I mean, the game, he's running away with the game because D-Knight is on its last legs, and Swampert is basically at half health, and yeah. So superpower pivot, and down it goes. And it's T. Yeah, this is don't be fooled. That's not a defensive Starmie. It's an offensive Starmie with T-Wave over T-Bolt, which is an experiment I had to mess with things that might otherwise be okay against offensive Starmie, like Super Rachi or Agility Empoleon living a T-Bolt, things like that. Here comes Rotom. You just let the Starmie go, no reason not to. And he's just going to go to T-Tar and Crunch, and then I think he finishes the game off with HP Grass. So this one was over much quicker, and there's Tesung going GG King, but spelling it wrong. So he says Kinf, which sounds like some sort of funny acronym. And Crunch, and there's another all caps GG. There's the HP Grass. Let's see the animation go off just because it's so satisfying. Yeah, and there's another all caps GG from CBB, and he has won the beef battle. And yeah, there were all caps GGs in this game too. So the end point of this video is you win the beef battle, and now what?